one.
Eric Lopez here alongside head coach Renee Luers-Gillispie as we're season recap here for UCFathletics.com. And Coach, what a successful year, 39 wins, back into the NCAA tournament. Just seemed like yesterday we're starting Claremont, but what a great year.
It has been a great year. Just a great group of girls that we worked with all season long. A lot of young freshmen and transfers that came in to really help our program this year. And the Claremont tournament at the beginning of the season was just a lot of fun to get the girls all together and fight for those positions this year.
It was an interesting way to start the year in Claremont. Beat Ohio State 2-1 on that Friday morning, a little drizzy rain. What were your expectations for this team? This was a brand new team. The whole pitching staff, brand new, had not thrown one pitch in Division I level. Right. And here you are going against Ohio State out of the Big Ten, and Chattanooga's been an NCAA tournament team. What were the expectations going in?
Just having good outings. Having so many new players this year. We only returned 5 from the previous year, and having a new squad, it was just a matter of trying to see what we had that first weekend, see kind of who was going to fill in those positions, who was going to get the starting nod for that weekend, and knowing we had good competition, but we were going to face the big competition to the following week when we were back out to California. It gave us a chance to kind of get things settled in and kind of feel where we were for that first weekend out.
And one of the players that established herself that weekend was Mackenzie Audis, the freshman out of Plant City, Florida. Beat Ohio State in her debut, 2-1, 9 strikeouts in that day. Came back, beat Chattanooga later in that tournament, 10 more strikeouts, no walks, 19 strikeouts, no walks for her debut. And really established herself as the ace that weekend and for the rest of the year.
She did, and a lot of what we worked in the first 2 weekends out with her was just getting ahead on the batters. Feeling confident that if she got ahead of the batters, they had good defense behind her, that we're going to make the plays behind her, and she did that. She got ahead in the counts, she was really working the batters and did what she needed to those first 2 weeks.
And of course, she would go on to win co-pitcher of the year. No UCF pitcher has ever done that in this program. Unbelievable. Some great names: Lindsay Enders, Allison Kime, Ashley Cole. None of them have won pitcher of the year. She did in her freshman year.
Right. Just what she came in with. She had high expectations for herself. She knew that we needed a pitcher that could come in and start right away, and having that mentality of wanting the ball and making sure that when she came in, she knew kind of what her expectations were for us. She did a great job for us, and having the support of the pitching staff behind her was a big help. She felt like she'd go out and go after those big games and have that support if she needed it.
Of course, not the only freshman that made a big impact. Farrah Sullivan out of Mississippi made second team All-Conference USA. Hit a home run in that Claremont tournament. Hit a home run the following week against UCLA in San Diego's tournament. That was a frustrating tournament because you lost every game, but it was great competition. UCLA ended up being a national seed. Washington, a national team seed, ended up going to the Super Regional. Could have won all of those games. The Washington game 1-0. But yet it seemed like even though you didn't win a game, it was a positive result because you could have won all of those games and really showed that you guys were not that close.
Sure, and that's why we go out there. I mean, the biggest thing we see in California and going against some of those top teams like Washington and UCLA, we get a chance to go against the teams that you're going to see in the World Series. Those teams are tough. We know that we have to play our best game, and being able to go out there and seeing the kind of job the girls did, with Mac on the mound, and like you said, the girls coming back. Elena had a good game. Farrah had a good game. Seeing our seniors with Vanessa and Natalie kind of taking the charge as seniors, really stepped up and proved what we were capable of doing in California. And like you said, even though we didn't come back with the wins that we had hoped for, we had the level of play that we were looking for. We had the competition that we were looking for.
Kind of a turning point. Lost a really heartbreaking game, the Florida State 9-inning game on a Wednesday night. Had a weird traveling night, which we won't get into. But you finally come home. Finally, first home game, third week of the season. You had a homestand. You went 3-1 that homestand. You beat Florida Gulf Coast in a well-pitched game. Florida Gulf Coast ended up going to the NCAA tournament. You took off from there. You won 11 in a row and really got the team kind of went in the right direction there, didn't they?
It helps being home and being in front of your fans. I think the toughest thing is to get on the road, especially with a young group, and know that they had to kind of show up the next day. It wasn't their own beds. They weren't comfortable in the fields that they're playing in, but being able to be home and being in front of our crowd and getting excited about having a homestand was really what took us, kind of what started the season for us. Got those wins, got the confidence that we needed to, got the rest we needed to, and it really helped with the start of our conference season.
Home season that would end up being the most successful home season in program history, 27-4 at home, including a win over Florida, ranked number 3 at the time on April 11th. An electric crowd at the complex, second largest crowd, sellout crowd. Mackenzie Otis in front of a televised game on Bright House Sports Network. Fantastic, a 2-hitter, 11 strikeouts as you beat Florida for the first time at home and in the regular season 2-0, which is clearly the highlight of the season in the regular season.
Well, and even in that game, it wasn't just the pitching. I mean, the pitching is what kept us in the game. But you look at Natalie being able to lead off the first inning with a base hit and being able to go to 2 on a sacrifice bunt, and then Vanessa moving over on that sack. But then having Farrah come up as a freshman in a big game like that and being able to have a nice shot down the line that ended up scoring both of them and giving us that 2-0 lead. The first inning jumping on them early is what you've got to do against Florida, because they're such a tough team, and when they come out and they play as hard as they do, if you don't get them early, it's going to be really tough to get them later in the innings.
That was a great moment in April. You mentioned conference play starting. Tremendous. You kind of swept East Carolina at home. That first time you've ever swept East Carolina at home. You swept Houston on senior weekend. You finished middle of the pack conference USA in a very competitive conference USA. 4 teams make the NCAA tournament. Could have made an argument for 5. You win 15 games in the conference, second most in school history. Just tells you how tough, though, the conference is when that's still only good enough for the middle of the pack. But a game here or a game there, you could have easily run at the top of the conference. That's how that close that is.
It is. I mean, when you see when we come down to the last weekend of the game and you got 3 teams that can go either way with 2 games, 2 games behind each other to have first, second, and third positions. That tells you how tough our conference really is, and it was tough. I mean, we did a great job with our wins at home, but again, we struggled a little bit on the road, and that's something we'll work for in next year's is making sure that we can handle the road games and getting ourselves prepared to be on the road. Because it's great to be able to win at home, but you got to win those home games, away games, especially if you're looking to go to regionals and moving on into those tournaments. You've got to play well when you're away from home.
And that's part of the young team learning that. A lot of those girls made their first trips to a lot of the places in the country, El Paso and Huntington, which we don't have to go back, thankfully. Nice cities. But that's part of the learning process they got to take into next year, isn't it?
It is. They'll be seeing the other half of the conference this coming year, and it is. We're going to be traveling to Tulsa. We're traveling to Houston. Tulsa's going to be hosting the tournament this year. Get a chance to be at ECU, and it's just going to be in Memphis is one on the road games also. So it's going to be nice for the girls to have that last stand in Conference USA and be able to understand what it takes to be able to win the regular season, because they had an idea of what it took. They didn't realize how tough of a conference setting that we had, and I think our freshmen are coming back. They're more ready now than ever, and it's exciting to see what they're learning from this year and getting ready for next year.
Now the other highlights, of course, the seniors, Natalie Land, Vanessa Perez, been here all 4 years.
Right.
2 times now they've been part of the NCAA tournament teams. Natalie Land, my goodness, what can you say? 346 average, has over 100 career steals, season record in stolen bases in a career and a single season. Just the superlatives can go on and on about her. Arguably now, at minimum, a top 5 player all time in this program history.
No question about it. I mean, the 104 was a record to break, and we got her to 102. And it's tough to see that she was so close to breaking the Conference USA record. But she broke a lot of records for us this year, and not just on the field, but she was also one of the Conference USA academic players of the year, and just doing everything she can, being in sports medicine, and just the type of student athlete as coaches that we look for. She's been the epitome of what a student athlete is all about, and to have her and Vanessa, I mean, they've been hooked at the hip since day one, and to see those two having such a great outing for them, and Tawny coming back and being able to have a good setup with these seniors. It was a nice leadership group, and they just really came out and did a nice job for us this year.
Vanessa Perez made second team All-Conference USA. Well-earned, great defense at center field. Never forget that catch she made against Chattanooga and Claremont, robbing a home run there in the 6th inning of that game. Tremendous accomplishments with her. You mentioned Tawny Swan, Lindsay Sommer, and then Allie Schmidt came in as a transfer 1 year. Your number 2 starter, ends up being the co-newcomer of the year in Conference USA. Won some big games in conference, 2 against Houston, 2 against East Carolina.
She did, and that's what we were saying with Mac having that kind of support. She came in, and it's tough for her. She came in for the engineering program, and I understand that she only had 1 year to come in and kind of prove herself. Most JC kids will have a year to kind of prove themselves and then have a good year the second year. And she just didn't have that chance. I mean, but she came in and she was ready. She worked really hard over the Christmas break, and she knew we were going to need her arm to win a lot of these games, and she had a great showing for us.
She did have a great showing, and certainly leadership there. One of the most highlighted weekends, we're going to El Paso, just scored a ton of runs. It was like a football game there. Run Rolled UTEP just had an explosive offense. Farrah Sullivan was just 3 homers that weekend. It was just a monster weekend there, and that was really offensively the biggest highlight of the year. And your big sweep on the road there, that was your big highlight on the road. Big sweep there. You won 2 out of 3 at Southern Miss, but that UTEP was critical.
Well, you see most of the games that we played throughout the early part of the season, it was all defensive. You know, It was Mac on the mound. It was shutting them down. We'd get 1 or 2 runs here and win the game. And for the UTEP series, it was so much fun to see our bats come alive and to have them realize, and the girls had to realize that they could score more than 2 or 3 runs in a game.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun to be down there. And El Paso is always a great place to go. Coaches are really good friends of ours, and they always treat us with a lot of respect, and we have a nice time down there. So it was a good trip for them, and especially for a lot of the young girls to understand how the high altitude really makes their bats bats work a little bit better. So it was a fun trip for us, and seeing that kind of lit up our offense a little bit. I think at that point they realized that they could hit, and it didn't have to be just a defensive game.
Other highlights from the season, a sweep over East Carolina as mentioned, including a thrilling game on Sunday. East Carolina made a late run in that 7th inning. It was a 1-run game. They had a ground ball deep in the hole to short, but somehow Natalie Land comes up with it, throws to first to save the game for us. And then, of course, the Houston senior weekend. Big rivalry against Houston. It was a big series, 2 teams, great RPI game. Usually it's a lot of ramifications, and you swept a very good Houston team that went to the NCAAs, including on senior day, a 6-3 win. And that really kind of secured you were going to go into the NCAA tournament. A great way to end the home season, a great senior weekend.
It was a great weekend for us. It was good to have Parents' Day on that Saturday and then the senior day on the Sunday, and have that kind of final game at home. It was just, you couldn't have written up any better than that. You know, the ECU series and the Houston series were both really tough series for us. They're always, you know, we battle them every year. To be able to take care of business at home was a lot of fun this year for the girls.
Following that Houston game, you went a road trip to Daytona Beach against Bethune-Cookman on a Tuesday. And Mackenzie Otis, you decided to get her the ball because you didn't want to take any chances. You know, you got to win down the stretch here to get into the NCAA, and turned out to be a historic decision as Mac throws a no-hitter, the first no-hitter for UCF softball since 2008. Some young lady by the name of
Allison
Kime.
Yes.
She was pretty good. She had a few no-hitters, 4 actually to count. Last one against FAU back in 2008. Mackenzie throws a no-hitter against Bethune-Cookman. Ironically, Allison Kime's first no-hitter came as a sophomore when she came to UCF in her first year, 2006, against Bethune-Cookman.
A little history there.
But take me through a little history there. 9 no-hitters in the program history now for UCF. But take me through that day with Mac throwing that no-hitter.
Well, like you said, I felt like with Bethune-Cookman, they're always a scrappy team. They're always looking to get into the regionals, and it's always between them and Florida A&M. And we knew it was going to be a tough one for us. We had to have a good outing to get into the next phase, which was our last series in Conference USA. So we felt like that was the route we had to take, and it was a good thing we did. I mean, we struggled getting the bats going at first, and Mac held them and gave us enough time to start scoring. And for her to have that no-hitter and come out as a freshman, it's just incredible for her to realize what she's capable of. And I think, you know, Allison was only with us for 3 years, and being able to have Mac with us for 4 years, it's just a lot of, as you can see, we've got a smile on our face as coaches. You know, we're excited about the next 3 years with her on the mound. It
should be exciting. 39 wins this season. You make the NCAA tournament. It was a little nervous on Sunday night selection show, of course, because the Gainesville bracket was the last one shown on the television. But you get in, you face South Florida. It was a great softball game. A lot of hype. Sarah Nevins and Mackenzie could have gone either way. Haley Barrow hits a ball in the 6th inning against Nevins that 1 or 2 inches higher than Jessica Mouse can't come up with. It's a completely different regional. Unfortunately, they got the benefit there. They win 1-0. They ended up doing very well. Then we lose to Florida. But for a lot of those girls, that's huge to get experience. They know now what it's like in an NCAA tournament. And I think seeing a South Florida make it to the World Series, I would assume the message will be in the fall, hey, we could be in that spot very well next season.
You're absolutely right. For the girls to see South Florida in there and knowing that one hit was a difference of a 2-1 ball game. You know, and Jessica Mouse made a fantastic job. You know, Kenny brags on her like we brag on Natalie.
Yeah.
They just make these unbelievable plays whenever they're playing defense. And You couldn't ask for a better player on that team to make that kind of play, but it was I kind of laughed because like Natalie making some great plays against us to win the game, earlier on. It was kind of karma coming into that game. But yeah, it was great for them to see how to get into regionals was one. The amount of effort it takes to be able to be one of those top 64 teams to get in, and it doesn't come down just to win losses, but it comes down to your level of competition. You got to have the RPIs. You have to play those top teams. You have to have a good mix to be able to have the committee look at you if you don't win the regular season. But then we preach about that is don't put it in the committee's hands. We've got to come back next year and make sure that we're doing our business and doing our job to be able to win it straight up, so we don't have to worry about sweating it out on Sunday.
No, it was an interesting night for sure, but it was a great experience. 39 wins, considering the fact you had a starter, freshman at second base and left field, Kaylee Novak and Madeline Schroeder, respectively. A freshman and catcher, Haley Barrow, caught most of the year. You have a freshman pitcher, Mackenzie Aldis, most of the time starting. That's half your lineup, all freshmen. I know you have high expectations of the program, but if you would have said before the year you would have 39 wins with half your roster starting lineup of freshmen make the NCAAs, you would have taken that.
I would have definitely taken that. To realize that we had 5 freshmen on the field in those regional games it's a blessing knowing that we're going to have them for the next 3 years, but also a lot of the shortcomings that we had this year was just because of freshman experience, not knowing, being a little nervous. Mac had a couple games where she was, a little nervous in the first couple innings, and then she settled in. But that's part of the experience. It's part of learning as a freshman and getting better. And having her and Haley working together this summer, you're excited about those two coming back and having that battery ready to go for next year. And being able to have Farrah working over the summer and knowing she's going to be back and getting stronger than she was. And she says she wants to get big, be a big girl next year and get bombed. So we'll see what she does this summer. But it's neat to see, and Maddie and the girls just really working hard. Mac's working hard this summer, just making sure that they're ready to come in and make a difference.
Farrah, also a freshman, started at first and third most of the year. I forgot to mention her because at times she played more than like a senior at times, it seemed, as a freshman. You mentioned that core is coming back, but you got a big class, one of your biggest classes you've got coming in next year, and that's the amazing thing is next year will be high expectations with the players coming back, but also it's still going to be a young team because you got a lot of players coming in next year.
Well, we're looking at 11 players, freshmen, coming in next year to add to our mix, and it'll be an interesting fall. We're excited about having that many players fighting out for those positions. Kaylee Novak played second base for us for the most part of the end part of the season. She started out in the outfield, and then we moved her to second base. And we've got 3 middle infielders coming in. In fact, we've got actually 2 coming back that were out for the season this year that were freshmen, but we'll have a redshirt year that will come in, and the competition is going to be really strong. So it's going to be fun this fall to see kind of how it all fits together, but knowing that those 5 freshmen are coming back and our returners are now seniors and have the experience being in regionals, it's going to be a little bit easier for us to be able to get back there.
And that's going to be one of your deepest teams you've ever had all year, which is going to be exciting. I know at times you've had some injuries that have kind of hurt you in depth-wise, but next year you'll be very deep. I'm not going to ask you how are we going to replace Natalie Ann, because that's an impossible question to answer. But the good news is you mentioned you've got a lot of flexibility, a lot of depth in the infield next year. You got Farrah is going to be probably your leader in the infield there offensively. Could be it's young talent, speed on offense, and of course you mentioned the pitching staff's going to be looks tremendous with Mac obviously being the leader there.
And having Alex coming back, Hartshorn, that's going to help out. She has that experience from this year. But then also having 3 freshman pitchers coming in that all 3 could easily find a spot in that number 2 spot behind Mac. So it'll be exciting season to see where we end up and see where everybody comes in ready to play.
It'll be an interesting year next year. It's your final year in Conference USA before you move into the Big East. So obviously that'll be one last chance to win the Conference USA before going to the Big East. And then in another tough schedule, you keep doing this to us. That's fine. Or people will stress. Your husband will stress about it. That's okay.
Yes.
But you go to Vegas for a tournament. You're going to play Florida. You go to Gainesville because that's our annual tradition. You go to Florida either regional or regular season. You host Florida State. That'll be exciting to bring them back here. Just another challenging schedule.
It will be. Looking at not just Vegas, but also being invited to the NFCA Leadoff Classic again. That's going to be in Clearwater this year. You're always seeing the top 40 teams in the country that are playing in that tournament. So we're very fortunate to have that invite this year. And we'll be able to see some of those top teams, top 25 teams in that tournament also.
That's why arguably one of the marquee tournaments in softball. It's kind of like the Maui in college basketball. We were there in 2010 when it was in Columbus, Georgia.
Right.
Weather not so much fun, a lot of cold weather, but a great moment when you beat top 5 Alabama up in Columbus, Georgia. And you'll be another top competition. And this time in Clearwater, we hope for better weather. But that's a great honor for the program when you get invited now to these marquee tournaments.
Right, and then that's what it's all about is trying to get our program to be consistent year in, year out. We have a lot of turnover, a lot of like our freshman class right now. We have 5 freshmen, actually 7 freshmen, because 2 will be returning in that class. But as they move out of the program, we want to have the stability of having younger kids to be able to fill in those shoes, and we haven't had that consistency in the last few years, and that's what we're trying to find. Is so we're consistently in the regional, we're consistently getting those requests for those tournaments, and having the success that we expect out of UCF softball.
It's going to be a challenging, exciting 2013 for UCF, lasting Conference USA before we go into the Big East. Of course, they're a strong conference as well. And 5 teams in this year. In fact, there's a projection with Houston and us adding to the Big East. We'd have had 6 teams into the regionals there. So it's going to be another marquee conference. Not a real big adjustment. You go from CUSA Big East. They're both very good.
It is. And I think with the Big East, with bringing Houston and Memphis into that with us, it's definitely going to be one of the top 4 conferences in the country.
It's going to be exciting. Last note before we go, of course, you're all watching the Women's College World Series and how that wrapped up. We will make one note. LSU in the World Series, their SID was your former SID, Matt Dunaway.
Yes.
So we want to congratulate him on making the Women's College
exciting.
World Series. Great year for them, and so we wanted to give them a salute for that. And then, obviously, as we wrap up here, moving now from here into the fall, what do you hope the girls kind of improve on and worked on between now and fall ball?
I think just the confidence level, getting a chance to get out there and play some summer ball, be able to come in and be in shape and ready to hit the road. It's a long season in the spring, but it starts with the first day of classes. So we've got to have them ready to go so we can take that next step.
It's one of the best, by the way, grade point average-wise teams you've ever had. If I was told, everybody, it seemed like there was a lot of girls who were upset when they got a B. That was an interesting change.
It is.
So tremendous academic work, and that's the great thing about these girls. They're taking care of business on the field and off the field.
And it's a great thing about UCF. I mean, their standards for students to come in are very high, and now their expectations for student athletes have increased too. So as coaches, we're looking for those top student athletes that can come in and be successful at UCF. And like you said, they're here for an education, and we get a chance to play softball, so that's the fun part.
All right, Coach, we know you got a busy summer, recruiting trails, all this stuff, but we thank you. And
Thank you, Ray.
For all of you on UCFathletics.com, keep it there for all the latest information on UCF softball. For head coach Renee Luers-Gillispie, I'm Eric Lopez. This has been the UCF softball season recap.